The first time I saw her, she was standing in the center of a battlefield that wasn't supposed to exist. Earth hadn't officially joined the interstellar community yet. Not fully. We were observed, studied, and occasionally protected, depending on who you asked. But wars? Those were meant to stay out there, far beyond our solar system. And yet, that night, one arrived on our doorstep. It began with a sky that didn't behave normally. The stars shimmered like reflections on water, and then they bent, literally bent, as if something massive was pushing through the fabric of space itself. Within seconds, the night cracked open, and a fleet descended. Ships unlike anything human engineers had ever imagined hovered above the city, their surfaces alive with shifting patterns of light. No sound at first, just silence and awe. Then the siren started. People ran. Cars collided. Emergency broadcasts filled every channel. I stood frozen on the rooftop of my apartment, staring upward, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break my ribs. And then the first shot was fired. A beam of violet energy struck the ground miles away, lighting the horizon like a second sunrise. Another followed, then another. Within minutes, chaos consumed everything. I didn't know who they were or why they had come. All I knew was that something far beyond humanity's understanding had just declared war. I should have run like everyone else, but I didn't. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was the strange, unshakable feeling that this wasn't just happening to the world. It was happening for me. I made my way down into the streets, pushing through the crowds. The air smelled like burning metal and ozone. Drones, sleek, metallic constructs, hovered overhead, scanning, firing, moving with terrifying precision. The military had responded quickly, but it wasn't enough. Our weapons barely scratched their shields. Tanks were reduced to molten wreckage. Jets were swatted out of the sky like flies. And then I saw her. She descended from one of the larger ships like a falling star, landing in the center of an intersection with a force that cracked the pavement beneath her feet. She was not human. Taller than any person I'd ever seen, clad in armor that seemed grown rather than built, shimmering with a deep, iridescent blue. Her hair, if it could be called that, flowed like liquid silver, and her eyes glowed faintly, like embers behind glass. She held a weapon that hummed with power, its blade formed from pure energy. People scattered the moment they saw her, but I didn't. I stood there, frozen, staring at her as she scanned the area. Her gaze passed over me once, then snapped back. For a moment, everything else faded. The noise, the destruction, the screams, it all disappeared. There was only her and me, and something in her expression changed. She walked toward me. Each step was deliberate, heavy with purpose. The ground seemed to tremble beneath her weight, though she moved with an almost unnatural grace. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to get away. But I couldn't move. When she was just a few feet away, she raised her weapon and pointed it directly at my chest. My breath caught. This was it. This was how I died. Not in some heroic act, not saving anyone, but standing like an idiot in the middle of a war zone, staring at something I didn't understand. Her eyes narrowed slightly, studying me. Then she spoke. The words weren't in any language I knew, but somehow I understood them. Identify yourself. My voice came out shaky. I'm just a civilian. She tilted her head, as if processing that. Civilian, she repeated slowly. Non-combatant. Yeah, I said. Definitely non-combatant. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, suddenly, she lunged. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just reacted. As she moved, I stepped forward, not back, and grabbed her wrist. It was the dumbest thing I'd ever done. This was a warrior who had probably fought in more battles than I could imagine, someone who could wipe me out in a fraction of a second. And I grabbed her. But something happened. The moment my hand made contact with her armor, a surge of energy shot through me. Not pain, something else. Something ancient. The world around us seemed to flicker. Her weapon flickered too. And then, she stopped. Completely. Her body went rigid, her eyes widening in shock. For a split second, I thought I had somehow broken her. Then she did something that made absolutely no sense. She dropped to one knee. The battlefield fell silent. Not entirely, but enough that the change was noticeable. The drones nearby paused, their movements becoming hesitant. Even the distant ships seemed to shift, their formations tightening. The alien warrior, this unstoppable force, was kneeling in front of me. Her head bowed, her weapon lowered. I stared at her, my mind struggling to process what was happening. What are you doing? I asked. She didn't look up. Instead, she spoke in that same strange, echoing voice. The mark has awakened. I blinked. The what? She slowly raised her head, her glowing eyes locking onto mine. The mark of dominion, she said. The signal of command. The right to rule. I shook my head. I think you've got the wrong guy. No, she said firmly. I do not. Before I could respond, a sharp sound cut through the air. A beam of energy struck the ground nearby, forcing me to stumble back. Another alien, larger, bulkier, with darker armor, landed a short distance away. Unlike her, this one radiated hostility. Commander Virex, the newcomer growled, his voice harsh and distorted. Why do you kneel before a primitive? The woman, Virex, didn't move. This primitive, she said calmly, bears the mark. The other alien froze. Then his gaze snapped to me. I suddenly felt very, very exposed. That is impossible, he said. And yet, Virex replied, you see it. He stepped closer, his weapon humming as it powered up. Then he is a threat, he said, and must be eliminated. I barely had time to react. The moment he raised his weapon, Virex moved. She was fast, faster than anything I'd ever seen. In an instant, she was between us, her blade igniting with a brilliant flash as she deflected the incoming attack. The impact sent a shockwave through the street, shattering windows and knocking debris into the air. Stand down, she ordered. He is an anomaly, the other alien snapped. An error that must be corrected. He is under my protection, she replied. Something in her tone made even me pause. It wasn't just authority. It was loyalty. To me. Which made absolutely no sense. The larger alien hesitated, clearly weighing his options. You would defy protocol? He asked. I would honor the mark, she said. The tension in the air was suffocating. Then, slowly, the other alien lowered his weapon. For now, he said, but this will not go unanswered. With that, he turned and vanished into the chaos, his form disappearing into a beam of light that shot back toward the sky. I exhaled, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. Virex turned back to me, her expression unreadable. You are in danger, she said. No kidding. They will come for you, she continued. Others will not hesitate as he did. Great, I muttered. So what now? She studied me for a moment, then made a decision. You come with me. Wait, what? Before I could argue, she reached out and grabbed my arm. The world shifted. The street, the city, the chaos. All of it vanished in an instant, replaced by the interior of one of the massive ships above. The room we appeared in was vast, filled with glowing interfaces and strange, floating constructs that shifted and reformed constantly. I stumbled slightly, trying to regain my balance. Okay, I said, looking around. Either I'm dreaming, or my life just got way more complicated. You are not dreaming, Virex said. Yeah, I figured. She stepped forward, and the room seemed to respond to her presence, lights shifting and panels activating as she moved. You must understand, she said, the mark you carry is not merely a symbol. It is a command embedded within the very fabric of our civilization. I crossed my arms. I didn't sign up for this. Nor did I, she replied. That caught me off guard. What do you mean? She hesitated, just for a moment. I was born to serve the mark, she said, to obey it without question. But I did not expect this. This being me? Yes. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Look, I said, I don't know anything about your mark or your war or whatever's going on. I'm just a guy. She stepped closer. No, she said quietly. You are not. Over the next few hours, she explained everything. Her species, known as the Kalari, was a warrior race bound by an ancient system of hierarchy and control. At the top was the bearer of the Mark of Dominion, a being chosen by forces even they didn't fully understand. The mark granted absolute authority, not political, not symbolic, absolute. Every Kalari was bound to obey it, without exception. And you think that's me? I asked. I know it is, she said. I looked down at my hand, half expecting to see something different. But it looked the same. Normal. Human. This is insane, I muttered. Perhaps, she said, but it is also reality. I leaned against one of the glowing panels, trying to process everything. So what happens now? I asked. She met my gaze. Now, she said, you decide the fate of my people. The weight of that hit me harder than anything else. I wasn't a leader. I wasn't a warrior. I was just me. And yet, somehow, I had been thrown into the center of something far bigger than I could comprehend. What if I don't want this? I asked. Her expression softened, just slightly. Then everything burns, she said. I blinked. That's not exactly reassuring. It is not meant to be. I let out a slow breath. All right, I said finally. Then I guess I don't have much of a choice. No, she said. You do not. Days passed. Or maybe it was weeks. Time felt different aboard the ship. Virex stayed by my side, guiding me, teaching me, helping me understand the power I had somehow awakened. And slowly, things began to change. The Kalari fleet stopped attacking. Their ships repositioned, forming a protective barrier around Earth instead of a siege. Word spread quickly among their ranks. The mark had returned, and it had chosen a human. Not everyone accepted it. Some saw me as a threat, others as a mistake. But none could deny the truth. When I spoke, they listened. When I commanded, they obeyed. And through it all, Virex remained at my side, not just as a protector, but as something more. The final confrontation came sooner than expected. The same alien who had challenged us before returned, this time with an entire faction behind him. He stood before me in the command chamber, his presence heavy with defiance. You are not one of us, he said. You do not deserve the mark. Maybe not, I said, but I have it. He sneered. Then prove you are worthy. I glanced at Virex. She gave a slight nod. This was it. The moment everything came down to. I stepped forward. Fine, I said. Let's settle this. The duel was brutal. He was stronger, faster, more experienced. But I had something he didn't. The mark. And with it, something deeper. Instinct. Connection. Power. And in the end, one move changed everything. I stepped inside his guard, just like I had with Virex. I grabbed his wrist, and the moment I did, he froze. His weapon flickered. And then he dropped to one knee. Silence filled the chamber. Just like before.
Just like the first time.
But this time it meant something different. This time it wasn't confusion. It was acceptance. One by one, the others followed. Kneeling, acknowledging, submitting, not to me as a person, but to what I had become. Ending in the end, the war never truly began, because it didn't need to. The moment the Kalari accepted the mark, everything changed. They didn't conquer Earth. They protected it. They didn't rule humanity. They stood beside it. And as for me, I never asked to lead an alien empire. I never wanted power. But somehow, I found myself holding it anyway. Not as a weapon, but as a responsibility. And every time I look at Virex, still standing at my side, still watching me with that same unwavering loyalty, I remember the moment that all began. One accidental move. One impossible connection. One warrior dropping to her knee. And everything
changed.